the News Channel 5 network, this is MorningLine with Nick Beres.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Beres here on a Monday. I do indeed hope you had a good weekend. I did. Survived the heat. Boy, wasn't it nice when all of a sudden we finally had a cloud burst. Look, we must have gotten 6 inches of rain in like 2 hours during a period, but it broke the heat. It's coming back a bit today, but it looks like Leland says a cool snap may be coming, whatever that means. But the main thing is it's a little warm and humid out, so just sit back and enjoy the show this morning with us. We'll open up the phone lines. Your chance to call in and talk, not just with me, okay? And I know that's prize enough, but you get the added bonus by talking to the top law dog in Davidson County, though he doesn't really have the powers to arrest, but that's okay. We'll talk about that another time. We'll talk about how's happening with the jail and how he's president of the National Sheriff's Association. That's all cool. But really, if you're in law enforcement, isn't it great to be able to arrest someone? Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall. I don't know how you would...
Google Nick Beres.
We just go back and forth. Technically speaking, he does have the power to arrest, I imagine, though that is not the primary task of you or your deputies. You administrate the jail. That's why we live in a metropolitan government system whereby we have a police chief and officers to go out there and write tickets. You don't have to. So if I went speeding right past you, could you throw lights up and pull me over?
Probably not. I have better things to do. I have better things to do than to, with all your stickers on your car.
You could just call it and say, look for the guy, and someone else will pick me up. That's all I can say is you're a good sport. You're always a good sport, and I'm a smart aleck, and I should know better than to go there. All right. So, well, how are you?
You know, I'm about like you. I feel like I'm drained. And, gosh, I was outdoors quite a bit over the weekend, and just miserable. My birthday is last weekend. It's always the hottest weekend of the year. It feels hottest day.
Is this 35?
Yep, 29 twice. And but I tell you what, I mean, it just it's just depressing in a lot of ways. So
hey, when this happens, I was curious thinking about this with at least your temporary facilities, and we'll talk about the jail, which looks like it's coming along great. When it gets this hot, does that influence anything that you do over at the jail right now over there on Harding? I know you've got heat and air, so that's working, but how does that set up for you when it gets this hot?
You know, Nick, it's something no one ever really talks about, but it's incredibly difficult to maintain. I mean, the facilities you're building aren't insulated. They're not built for that. I mean, like our houses are built for reasons, and you get all this insulation. I mean, these are basically brick and mortar type of places, and so both extreme cold and extreme heat are both tough to manage. And if you get a choice of those two, cold is much better when you're managing, anger and problems with people. It's easier to manage someone in a cold environment. I hate to say that, give blankets, than it is when it's 90 degrees inside of a room. And so we manage that. We test the temperatures all the time. We have fans going. We've had, these are big facilities, and I think it was a couple of weeks ago we had a little hot spell, and we had one of the units, and I'm not a mechanical guy, but one of the units on the roof was only producing 40% of what it needed to, so we had to have that emergency fixed, and when you did that, there was another one. So you're just always challenged by that. And even within that, I mean, even if you have the units that you would want, just imagine that, people coming and going, you're transferring, and these aren't like our houses where you have wood and insulation between the walls and all that. So huge challenge, and again, I say this all the time, our staff live there more than the inmates. And
so they're there. Well, because I'm wondering, not just, your staff, the mood of it, and I'm wondering, does it affect the demeanor of the inmates when it gets hot? And even when you have air, I mean, even in our studio here or elsewhere, it permeates when it's this humid anyway. It's cool in here right now, but you still kind of feel it. Does it affect the mood, you think, of the inmates?
So I went to graduate school. I have an all but thesis master's degree. Okay. I did everything but the thesis. I still regret that, by the way. But anyway, I did all this. So anyway, in graduate school, the only thing I remember from a long, long time ago about graduate school is that the correlation between crime is the sale of ice cream.
Okay, meaning that when there's a lot of ice cream being sold, does crime go up or down?
Up.
So there's more crime when it's hot.
The theory, sure. The tensions are more, right? There's more fights. There's more people in anger, and I mean, and I'm that way. I mean, you're a little more irritable when you're that way. Sure. So if you just take that, and again, that's been a long time ago that I remember that. So I'm not saying it's still a correlation, but it was then. And today, you know, we have inside a system, it's a microcosm of the city, and so we have crime within a system, and we have anger within the system, and we have, you know, people and frustrations and staff, and then, so, yeah, we would prefer it to be cooler at any time, and when you're dealing with the issues that we're dealing with, of course, the high volume of transports and people coming and going, it's very tough to manage the temperature of a facility like that. And when the one across the street finishes, you know, it will be designed in a better way than the 1982 building that we had downtown before, which was all hooked up on the chiller system underneath the ground, and a pretty interesting.
Now, I remember you showing me the pipes and the insulation, which was coming apart at the seams.
I mean, so
this new one will be.
Yeah, much better, and even and I'll talk with you, and you know, someday soon we'll be able to show it to you. But the way the maintenance of each one of the units in this new facility will be able to be managed will be much better. Actually, you're doing it from the back of each housing unit instead of having to go into one mechanical room. But you know, to be honest, it's like my house or here or anything else. I think your mood of coming from your car into the building even is just, you just feel like you're walking through a shower. And so, and again, a lot of these folks have a chance to go to recreation, and they're on the facility, and they're going to court, and they're going to hospitals or transport. So they're well aware of what's going on, and that mood, you know, permeates throughout the facilities. And so it's always a tough time. It's difficult. We've got fans, obviously, in addition to the traditional units, but it's always a challenge when you get to this part of the year.
But I think about your situation here in Metro, and I know you have headaches and issues with inmates and the level of crime that other counties don't have. But by comparison, the resources you have, and maybe Rick, you can double check for me. I'm trying to remember, Ben Hall recently did a piece on, I'm trying to remember the rural county where there's this jail, and we'll double check on this, but there are several counties in rural areas where the jail is just so strapped for space and accommodations that in Ben's story, there was a case of a female inmate who was actually pregnant and chained to a chair in one of the hallways. Thank you, Sheriff, you knew it. I figured it was one of us. Clay County is the one. And it's not alone. And to the sheriff's credit there, he was upfront about it. And he says, listen, I know, but we have these people they send us that we have to incarcerate. We have no space, no choice, and so all we could do is handcuff her here to this chair and give her a mat to lay on and hopefully make sure she's okay. But, I mean, that's all we can do. Now, I remember it wasn't long ago that in both Murray County years ago with Enoch George and also Truman Jones in Rutherford County both sued their counties to get the money to upgrade. They turned around and sued their own county because the counties would not pass the money needed to do the proper upgrades. And they won because federally they had to meet those things. I see counties like Clay, and I know they don't have a tax base that's large, but I'm just curious what you thought about counties like Clay where this sheriff really, I sympathized with him, and I gave him credit for going on with Ben and saying, I'm sorry, I have no choice, but I mean, they sent him to me. I can't just say, well, we have no room, so we're just going to let him go. And all I had was a handcuff and a chair and a hallway.
Right.
So, what do you think?
Yeah, you know, I have all kinds of memories of this situation. I like analogies. It helps me see things. Sheriffs are the bathtub. Okay? The arresting agencies are the faucet, and the judges are the drain. They release. The judges either convict and move you on or let you go via the system. So the spigot is pouring in water into the tub, and the sheriff controls the tub. Doesn't have the authority to release people. I mean, these are people, and doesn't really contribute to the arrest. Even in most jurisdictions where the volume of people coming in are coming in from other law enforcement agencies. So if you're managing a bathtub and I get to turn on the water and someone else gets to let it go, and eventually the water overflows over the top of the
That's what's happening.
You have neither one of those responsibilities to let go or in some cases stop the intake. You understand what happens. And so the sheriff in Clay County, I mean, I worked in a system here 30 years ago, and I'm not exaggerating this. We had 600 beds, we had 2,000 people in them. The media would come to want to see it, and the sheriffs then, and even today, much better today, have been able to say, look, it's not my fault. Here's the problem. What do you want me to do with this population? Back then, we enabled because we hid it from people. We put inmates on buses and drove them around half the day, not kidding. The media would come in and we were told to hide the inmates because it would make you look bad if you're overcrowded. Today's sheriff is much more, to me, wise to expose the problem.
Yep.
Because it's not your fault how
Be
filled
upfront, make it clear.
is. Right.
They do. They invite him in. And that's what this guy. And we'll go to the break and maybe talk more about this, and we can take some calls. I don't want to stay too long on it, but how much does the jail cost here? How much does this baby cost?
$100 million.
$100 million. Okay. Again, this is Davidson County. We have the resources, but I'm just wondering, in Clay County, even if there's a lawsuit and they win, where's the money going to come from to build this new jail? If the tax base is so low, the money's simply not there. It's not like they're blowing a lot of money available to build a new jail on a bunch of frivolous other things. Clay County doesn't have the money to build a new jail. So what on earth do you do?
Right.
Send them elsewhere, maybe? I don't know. Stop arresting so many people? You can't really do that, I suppose. I don't know.
Right.
It's a rub.
I had a county commissioner come down to see me, scheduled a meeting, came down last week from Warren County in McMinnville. Mm-hmm. Don't know the fellow, young person, real energetic and very bright, and he came in, he's on the county commission, and he said, I want to talk to you about why we would need more space in our jail, more staff in our jail back in Warren County. And he went through all this stuff. Long story short, he had sponsored raising the taxes in Warren County. Credit to him, because he wanted to give the jail 16 more correctional officers and a mental health person, and heard us talking about mental health here.
Yeah, right.
The credit to him, they got it passed, first tax increase in like 16 years in a middle-sized county. But I was so impressed with him because he worked hard back home, wanted to come get some information about it. But the point that you're making is, and he would say, we can't get anybody to raise taxes for anything. They want everybody off the streets. They want the mental health problem solved. They want the person arrested. They want clean and healthy, jails, if you will. But they don't want to pay for it. And so he was able to get that conversation and was doing his homework, I think, by saying, talk about mental health, talk about why we should be doing these things. And so sent me a note over the weekend, and just to really, I was really impressed that a county like that doesn't have the resources, but is also realizing that if you don't do something about it, you're going to pay anyway. You're going to pay in the lawsuits that you're talking about.
And there's going to be, exactly. As we go to the break, the part that gets me the rub is no one wants to pay for those tax increases, because a lot of them will say, and there's some horrible things that happen, as we've seen in Core Civic and some of these others, and whenever we do stories about inmates, getting raped or murdered or whatever behind bars, people are like, their attitudes, well, if you don't want that to happen to you, don't commit a crime and go to No, that's not the way it works, folks. There are standards. I'll let the sheriff get into that as to why when we incarcerate people, you're not just opening them up to being ravaged, okay? Right. That's not the way a civilized society works. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll take some phone calls. We won't just stick on that as well. There's a lot of other things we can talk about. Whatever's on your mind for the sheriff right after this. Stay with us.